Welcome back to another episode of Newcastle Unlocked. This is the third episode for the series, and today we'll be talking about Newcastle's property market, the residential property market that is, with a focus on prestige residential, but as well generally discussing the dynamics facing the market both here locally and nationally. Now in Newcastle in the last 12 months, we've seen 10 homes sell for over $4.5 million. And one above 11 million, which is just an incredible outcome for Newcastle and our city. So there's definitely the emergence of prestige streets and suburbs and plenty of money being thrown around in that space. But at the same time, as we sit here today, we are seeing an affordability crisis. High interest rates, high inflation, it's definitely hurting the wallets of many households. Adding to that, we've got population pressures. We've had a massive influx of new population to our national population figures. We've got record high construction costs. So all of these pressures are facing the residential market, and the government's working to try and how to fix it. Looking at the stats, we've had 666,000 people added to the national population last year. The Australian government's looking at targeting 1.2 million in new homes for the next 5 years, which is roughly 20,000 a month. And new home approvals in January fell by about 9.5%. So they just hit about 12,850. So not quite sort of hitting the benchmark for when those new targets come in. And as we sit here today, owner-occupier principal interest rates are sitting at about 6.27%, but plenty of friends and family are paying high sixes, even into the sevens. So there's definitely some pressures out there. But today to discuss all things residential, I'm joined by my guest, Lyndall Allan, who's principal at Salt Real Estate. So thanks very much for joining us today, Lyndall.
Thanks for having me.
So you've sold 4 of the top 10 highest value homes in Newcastle in the past 12 months, so congratulations.
Thank you.
So you're here to tell us all things about the luxury market in Newcastle, we'll call it, but also talk about some of these dynamics that we spoke about. So firstly, the fun stuff, an $11 million sale in Bar Beach. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, that was certainly a highlight, and a sale that kind of comes along very rarely in a career. Mine is 25 years long, and it's definitely been a career highlight for me. That was an incredible home. Sold for $11,050,000, beating the city record. It was also the highest sale in the country that week.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
The reason why I got such an exceptional number was about its location and the build. So it was in, without a doubt, one of the prime locations in Newcastle. It had an incredible frontage, 3 times more than what you would normally see. And that frontage gave you uninterrupted ocean views from nearly every room in the house. So it was only 3 years old. It was the best of the best in construction, finishes, and it just overlooked the ocean, also overlooked a park. It was just absolutely stunning.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful home. I've driven past it many times on my way to the beach. So the prestige market in Newcastle, for context, we're talking $4.5 million plus transactions.
Yes.
As I said, 10 in the last 12 months. Who are buying these homes? Are they locals? Are they families? You know, and what are the trends that you're seeing in some of these homes? What are people expecting out of these homes?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So out of the 4 that I was talking about that were north, all of them were from Newcastle, except for one. Mind you, he had studied in Newcastle and he had moved back here from Sydney. So definitely a lot of the interest in the higher end has been local interest. There has been some even international, like I had an inspection, for example, with a lady last week from Singapore who was working with a buyer's agent from Sydney. So you do every now and then get some out of area interest, but generally it's professionals, and pretty young professionals at that, I would have to say.
Yeah, right. And families, are they, couples, downsizers? Is it a mix of all?
I would say, I'm just thinking, all families, actually.
Yeah, right.
Everyone that I had sold, it was families of 4 and 5 that were moving into the property.
Yeah, nice one.
Yeah.
And they're scattered across mainly around Merewether, but what are
Yes.
some of the top streets? What are we talking about? Where are we looking at for the best houses in Newcastle?
So the places where you're going to get the biggest price tags is basically the oceanfront and the waterfront.
Yep.
So it could be anywhere from a penthouse on Newcastle Beach or anywhere along that water there, Shortland Esplanade, John Parade. I love Bar Beach Avenue. I think that's a beautiful street. Ocean Street's a very popular street. Hickson Street, which is at the top of Merewether. But your Bar Beach, Newcastle East, Merewether, that tends to be where your most expensive homes are. But there's lots of different aspects from different parts of those streets. Some have a distant view like your Hickson, some are right on top of the ocean like your John Parade. So it just depends what people value.
And design trends, is there anything that you're seeing out there that people are wanting more than others in the market at the moment?
Technology is definitely something that's really important, and privacy and security. So we're definitely seeing a lot of high tech as far as that goes. We go through phases with real estate. Sometimes things like, I remember back in the day where everyone had to have ducted vacuum and alarms. Well, we definitely don't see them. I'm showing my age here. We definitely don't see them anymore. But things like walk-in pantry or butler's pantry, and things like double ovens and double dishwashers and even double washing machines, things that make our life more convenient, is definitely something that we're seeing in the high end. Beautiful lighting is really having a moment, I think, at the moment. Even things like, built-in wardrobes where there's strip lighting through it, or handrails when you walk upstairs with stunning lighting, things that are really sort of stepping the game up there, but just really good quality.
Yeah, okay, great. And there's been large transactions in homes. What about, is there a rental market? Have we got a market for the higher end homes? Is there anything in our market for that sort of product?
Yeah, there definitely is. For the high end rentals, it's generally two main people that are looking for the high end rentals. It might be someone that's building but still wants a high quality family home. Or it could be someone that has sold and is in the interim of trying to find something. But then you've got people like doctors, John Hunter Hospital brings a lot of doctors to our area that might not be from Newcastle. So we see them placing in a lot of the high end rentals. Also, just anyone like relocating or locating themselves to the city. A furnished rental in that space tends to go incredibly well.
Yeah, great. And whilst you've had some great success in the prestige market, your office handles all price categories and suburbs away from the beach.
Yes.
What are you seeing out there generally? What's some of the indicators? How's the number of people getting through homes in the brackets from 1 million, 2 million, right up to the top? Are you seeing days on market pricing? What's some of the conversations that you're having at the moment?
Yeah, it definitely varies per price bracket. So days on market overall in the city is 53 days, which, to be honest, is pretty long. We haven't seen I haven't seen it that long in quite a long time. I think that's due to 13 interest rate rises and buyers sort of sitting on their hands. It's very much been a buyer's market compared to 2 years ago in the COVID craziness where it was, a seller's dream. Something would go on and it'd sell within a day or two. That was insane, those times. But now there's still a lot of demand in that probably 1.2 price point, and that's because you've got your first home buyers, you've got investors, you've got your second home buyers. There's just a lot more. There's a lot more buyers that can afford that bracket. So the higher you go up in the bracket, the less buyers you have. Therefore, it tends to sit there a little bit longer.
And just generally the sentiment from buyers and sellers. You mentioned 13 rate rises, which is, quite a lot in a very short amount of time.
Yes, it was fun, yes.
But now, it's dramatic when it happens, but it's the length that it's staying. We're hoping for a rate cut, expecting a rate cut at some point in the next, maybe towards the end of the year.
Yes.
But what are you seeing? Have you seen what are you seeing out there with pain in the market? Are you seeing much of it? Are people quite resilient? Is it different brackets? Are sellers holding out? Are you seeing compromise? And what are the buyers saying? Are they coming to you and saying, look, 6.5%, 7% with the massive price increases that we've had since COVID, How's that all playing out? What are the conversations behind the scenes?
It's a very good question. And the answer to that is it's changing all the time. So, for example, at the moment, there's a lot of media reports about the interest rate rises dropping, and there's a very good chance, in my opinion, that we will see that this year. Therefore, it's building a lot more buyer confidence in the market. This time last year, we were still in the middle of 13 interest rate rises, and buyers were just saying, I'm just going to sit and wait. The interest rates are going to keep going up, the prices will keep going down. So it was really difficult to get buyers motivated to buy and also to get sellers to sell because, it was tough. The market had definitely come back and they weren't getting the prices we were 2 years ago. But I think now, look, the days on market is still longer than what I would like, to be honest, but there is definitely more buyer confidence out there. And I think it just comes down to the properties being priced correctly and priced well. If they're overpriced, they're not selling. If they're a good product and they're priced correctly, like we had an auction last weekend and it went absolutely crazy. We had 6 registered bidders. It went well beyond the vendor's expectations. We had another auction where, we literally had 1 registered bidder and it didn't sell, but that's because I think the price expectations was a little bit higher. So it's very much a price-driven market.
Okay. And keeping in that theme, we've got a median house price in the Newcastle LGA of around $840,000. Are you seeing any value out there in the suburbs? Whereabouts are you seeing some of the opportunity, even with the prices where they're at?
Yeah, I think that there is a couple of suburbs that I particularly like. Hamilton North, I think, is, if you can get into that suburb, I think there's potentially quite a bit of growth in there. I noticed a house popped up this week and it was $840,000. Yes, it needed some work, but it's a Torrens title home. Your rental return was good. I think any tips for your listeners is try and buy something that you can potentially add value to, but land content is what's important. The home you can always change, you can always renovate, but the block of land it's sitting on you can't change. And that's what gives you the most capital growth. The bigger your land, the bigger your growth. So if you can find an up-and-coming suburb like Hamilton North, Hamilton, and Adamstown would probably be my 3 top picks where it's still affordable and you're not forking out too much versus potentially what the rent return is. Merriweather Heights is another suburb that I love, but it is getting a bit more expensive. Your average is probably more around 1.3, 1.4. Yeah.
And we've seen it in the media. Everyone's talked about it, the Sydney migration since COVID.
Yes.
Big talk about it when we're locked down. Everyone wanted to leave the city. We did see it a little bit in commercial. But what have you seen? Is that true to the reports?
Yeah.
Has there been more Sydney buyer activity generally? And how's it been the last few years?
So through the COVID craziness, I would say at some point when it was literally going insane, probably half of our buyer inquiry were not local. Actually, a lot from Canberra and a lot from Melbourne and a lot from Sydney. And that was because people could work from home. So they could get more bang for their buck. They could get that coastal lifestyle. Newcastle is an incredible city and what it has to offer, whether it's the airport, the universities, the restaurants, the beaches. So it's very appealing. And for people to still be able to earn the dollars they were earning in, say, Sydney, but have the lifestyle Newcastle has to offer, it really sent the city's prices like crazy.
Yeah.
We're definitely not seeing that like we were. I would say as a percentage, it was probably at its peak up around 50%. I would say we're probably sitting at maybe 10.
Yeah.
And that's not specific to Sydney. That's just people coming out.
Yeah,
a lot of Novocastrians stay in Newcastle. Yeah.
That's true. And we're talking about the supply-demand pressures on homes generally across the country.
Yes.
And its impacts on rentals. What are you seeing out there in the rental market? Is it hard to get rentals at the moment? Is it, has it eased a little bit? What are you seeing out there?
No, it's actually still really tough. The rental market, I feel, hasn't really pulled back, whereas the sales market has since COVID. It just keeps going from strength to strength to strength. I know one of our rental properties, the tenants were moving out and we got a phone call last week and I couldn't believe they were saying we could put the rent up again.
Mm.
You know, that's insane to me. There's definitely a supply and demand issue there. So, you know, for investors who we're slowly seeing start to creep back into the market, there is some good opportunities out there.
That was my next question. Investors, compared with, say, even 18 months ago, has there been a drop in investors since the interest rates have kicked up?
Absolutely.
What are you seeing now? It's starting to come back, you mentioned.
Yeah, they're crawling back into the market very slowly. It's just, you know, the numbers don't stack up anymore. And we definitely have had a lot of sales from investment properties where, say, they bought it in 2020 and then 13 interest rate rises later, they're putting in $2,000, $4,000 a month, and it's just not affordable for them. So we've had a lot of those sort of resales as well. But I think slowly the investors are starting to come back in with the buyer confidence and the chat of, you know, the interest rates easing, but it's definitely not where it was.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And looking ahead 12 months from now, you know,
Yes.
possible interest rate cut, where do you see the market heading to? What's some of your predictions for the rest of this year and perhaps early into next year?
I personally think there isn't going to be too much of a change, to be honest. My thought and reasoning on that, it's a bit long-winded, but I'll just keep it quick. So real estate generally booms every 7, doubles every 10. So we had that boom in 2017 and that was insane. And then we had another boom 3 to 4 years later with COVID, 2020, 2021. Now, we saw up to 42% growth in suburbs like Merewether in that time. I just and we've seen it come back between 10 and 15% since then. I personally think that we're going to see prices be pretty stable for at least another 5 years. I just don't see how wages can sustain or hold any extra growth in the market. I just don't see it there. Will the interest rate cuts like dramatically change the market? I don't think so. I'm saying to people, you know, if you need to sell, there's the conversation we're hearing is, oh, we'll just wait until the end of the year or we'll wait till spring because interest rates might drop. One drop after 13 isn't going to soar the prices up. I think buyer confidence is coming back even without the interest rates there. So my advice is if you find something that you want to buy it. And if you have something to sell it, because waiting, I don't think, is going to have any dramatic change for quite a few years. But that's my guess.
I agree. No, I'm hearing you. No, I tend to agree. Well, look, thank you very much for joining us and taking the time today to join us.
Pleasure.
And some great insights there. So
Thanks
for joining us. That's all from us. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch up with you next time.
Thanks for having me.